What's going on, all of my nurses as well as my healthcare professionals alike? I hope that you are having a wonderful day. Today I want to talk to you about something a little bit different in travel nursing, and that is the top 4 mistakes that we made while travel nursing in 2018. If you are new to my channel, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. That lets you know when I post new content on here and keeps you up to date on all things nursing. If you're an oldie but a goodie, make sure that you give me that big thumbs up, as well as leave me a comment down below with any questions you have or any concerns or maybe even topics that you want me to cover in the future. Let's get started. So travel nursing is an exciting way to experience travel and gain new experiences, as well as see different cultures that you might not necessarily be able to see unless you can afford to travel there. So in 2016, my husband and I decided to start travel nursing. And why? Why not? Because this might have been the only opportunity for us to travel while still getting paid and experiencing different cultures. However, we learned very quickly when we first started travel nursing that we were not prepared to start travel nursing, and we had no idea what we were doing. Since 2016, we have learned from those mistakes. However, 2 years later, I am still finding that I am making different mistakes that I had no idea were mistakes to begin with. So this is the reason why I am making this video, to discuss these mistakes with you, and hopefully you can prevent yourself from making those mistakes in the future. Mistake number 1, not researching your facility's location before accepting a contract. You would think by now I would have learned my lesson, especially having been travel nursing since 2016, but c'est la vie, I guess I have not. It wasn't until this past contract that I have finished where I was canceled that I realized it was extremely important to do your research beforehand. If you haven't seen the video about my contract cancellation story, I'm going to go ahead and leave a link up here in the corner, because I think it is imperative for those who are looking to get into the travel nursing industry to kind of see what you're up against and see what could potentially happen with a contract if you don't do your research beforehand. So for example, when I arrived at my travel nurse contract facility, I had noticed that there was another hospital that was directly across the street. I figured it was part of the same hospital because it was literally, it was a one-way street both ways, and it was literally right across the street. Well, I had ended up finding out that that was another competing hospital's facility. We were advised to park in that hospital's facility's parking lot, and there was a shuttle that would pick us up from over there and bring us over to the facility that I was working at. Like I said, I should have done my research before. Had I known that the hospital that was right next door to them was a very highly competitive hospital. They had better HCAP scores, they had more patients, it was just a better facility overall. Had I done my research beforehand and saw that there was another hospital that close to the facility that I was going to be working at, probably wouldn't have taken that contract. Here are 4 things that you should research before accepting a travel nurse contract. Number 1, you need to research how close another competing hospital is within the assignment that you are potentially accepting. Like I said before, there was a competing hospital that was in a reasonable amount of distance from where I had accepted a contract. I did not know that because I did not do my research. And that particular hospital that I had not accepted a contract to was better perceived by the community. The community liked it more, the HCAP scores were better, so the hospital that I was going to had a very, very bad low census issue. They were overstaffed. They didn't really need me. Number 2, research the location's demographics as well as economic studies. In January of 2018, I had accepted a contract in a kind of middle class area. However, it was very close to a lower class, poorer area. And my car was broken into twice. It was broken into once, they picked my lock, and then the second time they broke my window. Needless to say, that was the last time that I chose to work in an area that was so close to such a crime-ridden area, and I just want you to not make that mistake like I did. Number 3, research how close shopping as well as retail stores are from where you are staying as well as the facility. In May of this year, I accepted a contract that was kind of out in the middle of nowhere. There really wasn't any retail stores or shopping centers that were in a reasonable amount of distance either from where the facility was or for where I was staying, and there was a couple times I had to drive 45 minutes just to get to a Target or the nearest Sam's Club in order to do grocery shopping or just pick up things that we needed when we were staying in different locations. Unfortunately, you travel, you don't know where things are located, so those are things that you need to research. If it is important to you to be near shopping and to be near retail and not have to drive that far, then those are things that you need to consider prior to accepting your contract. And lastly, number 4, it is important for you to research housing locations prior to accepting a contract. It is extremely important that you know that you have options once it comes time to accepting a contract. Unfortunately, there have been situations specifically in Florida around the times that the snowbirds come down. That could be between October to about March, April time down here, that you might not find any housing because that is the time that everybody comes to Florida to escape the winter. So I have accepted many a contract, and there have been times where I've had to stay at, let's just say, not so stellar places because I needed to find housing and I needed to be close to my facility. And there has been times that I've almost driven 45 minutes to get to my facility because there were no housing options. So prior to accepting that contract, saying yes and signing on that dotted line, make sure that you know your housing options and that you are well prepared ahead of time. Moving on to mistake number 2 is not packing correctly when you're traveling to your travel nurse assignment. So my husband and I travel a little bit differently than most of our travel nurse counterparts. So what exactly does that mean? My husband and I live in an RV. It is exhilarating to live in an RV, and it is so much easier than going from apartment to apartment when you are travel nursing. If you're interested in the RV lifestyle, I want to invite you to click up this link in the corner because it goes through how we started travel nursing in an RV and specifically what the pros and cons are of living in an RV when you travel. But moving on. Instead of having to pack up boxes and suitcases in between assignments, travel to your next assignment just to have to unpack them all over again, our travels are a little bit differently in regards to packing. Basically, we make sure that everything is tied down in our RV, we shut our slides, we hook it up to our truck, and we take off and we go to our next assignment. And who knows, if we wanted to stay someplace for a couple days or if we want to just take a break between assignments, our house is always with us. We don't have to pay for hotels, we don't have to find Airbnbs, we don't have to do any of that because our house is with us. We simply just unhook our RV from our truck, we open our slides, we connect it to power and sewer wherever we are staying, and we are good to go for a week or 2 or however long it is that we want to stay in a location. So unfortunately, we don't have a lot of the overpack stories like maybe some other people do, but I have learned previously before we got the RV that we obscenely overpacked, and here are my top 2 tips for you to make sure that you do this travel nursing thing right. So tip number 1, like I said before, try not to overpack. It is normal for travelers in the beginning of our travels to try to pack everything and anything we own because we live by the mentality it's better to have it than not have it, right? Well, you're wrong. Only pack what is a priority. Once you arrive, you can make purchases on things that you need, such as silverware, plates, and other necessities that you might need in that location. It is not necessary for you to have to pack them every single time that you move. In previous travels, when we didn't have our RV, what we would do is we would go to a thrift store or someplace where they sell really cheap things, and we would purchase them and then give them back to a thrift store or to, any kind of charity so that they could pass on to someone else. And that made our lives a whole lot easier and made our car a whole lot less heavy because we didn't pack those things whenever we traveled. And my top tip number 2 is to make sure that when you do pack, you pack correctly. So I have an absolutely horrible story of my Nintendo Switch that became a casualty when we were traveling in between assignments. Unfortunately, when it was in our RV, it fell over from the shelf that it was supposed to be staying on. The shelf was secured with like a little kind of door, but the door popped open and the Nintendo Wii came out and it got crushed in our slide. So the same thing can happen to you if by chance it falls out of your bag while you're moving, or I've heard of people rolling over their computers and things of that nature. Just make sure that when you pack correctly, you don't pack in a hurry, and you make sure that everything is secured before you take off in your vehicle. Contract cancellations can tend to happen within the travel nursing industry. Recently, my nursing contract was canceled immediately the day after my orientation shift. Most of the time, travel nurses are going to tell you the best way to be prepared is to make sure that you have money saved up in your savings account so that in case you're canceled, you're going to be okay. However, Because we're in an RV and because this particular RV park wanted all of their money up front, we arrived a week before the contract was to begin. We got settled into our spot and I paid over $3,000 of my hard-earned money to stay at this RV park to make sure that we were okay and we were in a good area near the facility. Unfortunately, my contract was canceled and we were out of our housing money. It still hurts. So what are my top tips regarding this mistake? Well, as you guessed it, number one is don't pay for your housing up front. Unfortunately, we learned it the hard way. There were other options that we could have stayed at. However, this particular place is really wanted to stay because it was like the Cadillac of RV parks, and unfortunately, I made the mistake and we lost out on a lot of our savings. As well as tip number two is it might be worth driving a little bit farther than normal to make sure that you are in a safe and consistent monthly housing situation, meaning that you're not paying everything up front, they're allowing you to pay monthly, and you're in a safe location. I would much rather be in a safe location a little bit farther away than to be in a not so safe location much closer to the facility just to save myself from having to drive that far. And mistake number four is not having 1 to 2 months worth of financial cushion in your savings account. So as I said previously, contract cancellations tend to happen and it's important to be prepared for the unexpected. Unfortunately, we were prepared for the unexpected initially, but because I had to pay for all my housing up front, our savings kind of drained and we were left in a worse situation than we were beforehand because of that specific situation. But don't let that happen to you. Make sure that you have enough money in your savings account just in case, you know, a contract is canceled, or say you have a family emergency. It's not always about contracts being canceled. Sometimes you can have a family emergency. In the beginning of 2016, when I had first started my travel nursing career, my husband's mother got sick and it required us to come home for an extended period of time. And it really put a financial strain on our situation because we weren't prepared back then. Now we know better. Even though you've heard my previous story, I should know even better. But anyways, regardless, we know better, and that we know that we need to have that financial cushion in order to travel safely and to be financially secure in case something was to happen. So my top tips, number one, is to make sure that you create a spreadsheet of your expenses each month and to place a reasonable amount of money in your savings. We obviously make more money than we do as staff nurses, so it's extremely important that you put a percentage of that money away so that in case something happens, like I said previously, you are going to be okay. It is also important to understand realistically what your expenses are and how much you can put away. So by creating that spreadsheet, you can kind of estimate specifically what the expenses are. I get it. Sometimes things pop up. Sometimes your car breaks down. Sometimes you have to like move a location. I mean, there's things that can happen and I get it. But at least if you have a basic understanding of what your expenses are, you'll be a little bit more prepared financially when you're working as a travel nurse and moving to assignments to and fro, or if there's an unexpected situation that occurs, you're going to be okay. And number two, it is so easy to enjoy what each location has to offer. No matter where you go, if you come to Orlando, there's Disney, there's Universal, there's theme parks, there's attractions, there's restaurants, and you can become a little overwhelmed financially if you're spending all your money on those locations. So it's important to budget. It is okay to experience those locations and, you know, go to places you've never seen. However, you still have to do it within a budget. If you are spending $700 a week on attractions and restaurants and things of that nature, you're really not making a whole lot of money, and you can actually cause yourself to be financially strained like we were, not because of overspending but because of other reasons. But you could be financially strained and then you'll be stuck if something was to happen to you. So make sure that you budget your money, make sure that you create that spreadsheet, and make sure that you understand how your finances work so that you don't make these mistakes in the future. That's it in regards to my mistakes that we made in travel nursing for 2018. I really hope that this was helpful for you. I know that many of you out there have made mistakes that I did not cover in this video, and I want you to leave them down below. There's other travel nurses. This is a community. We really need to help each other out and prevent each other from making mistakes and doing stupid things like I did and that you did. We've all done stupid things. So this is the place to do it. Leave your comments down below. Leave your tips, leave your hints, leave ways that you've saved, leave ways that you've prevented yourself from making mistakes. I would love to hear from you, and I cannot wait to speak with you all again soon. Until next time, I'll talk to you later. Bye!